Alright guys, hey, everything new under the sun. I want to take a look at this article on breakingisraelnews.com. But first, let's go to the scriptures, Daniel 12. This is Daniel 12, and it's speaking of the end times, and it's speaking of the Antichrist ceasing the sacrifices, stopping the daily sacrifices. Go down here to verse, let's go to verse 9 here. He replied, "Go your way, Daniel, because the words are rolled up and sealed until the time of the end." When is the time of the end? Well, they weren't added then because God was telling them to seal it up then, so that's not the time of the end. And the time of the end would have to be at the end of the 6,000 years, or near the end of the 6,000 years, basically. "Many will be purified, made spotless, and refined. But the wicked will continue to be wicked. None of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand. From the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is the one who waits for and reaches the end of the 1,335 days." So, at this time, and then the last verse says, "As for you, go your way till the end. You will rest, and at the end of days you will rise to receive your allotted inheritance." The end of days, Daniel's not going to rise 2,000 years ago or something when, someone overthrows the temple, the second temple, for example. He's going to rise at the end of days, at the end of time, at the end of 6,000 years, likely. And so I would suggest that this also, verse 11, is also speaking of, because it's speaking of the end of time in verse 9, because these words are rolled up and sealed until the end of time. I would suggest, and many agree, that this verse 11 is going to happen at the end of time, at the end of 6,000 years. And this suggests that there has to be a third temple here. Because the daily sacrifice is abolished, and they won't start their sacrifice until they have some kind of a temple there that they can do the sacrifice outside of, basically. And so from the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished, so that suggests there's going to be a third temple. So I have an interesting article from breakingisraelnews.com, and it includes the Sanhedrin half-shekel temple tax, reinstated by Sanhedrin temple tax. Interesting. This is fascinating stuff. We are living in incredible times. "Everyone who is numbered from 20 years old and over shall give contribution to the Lord. The rich man shall not pay more, and the poor shall not pay less than half-shekel when you give contribution to the Lord to make atonement for yourselves." Exodus 30:15 is where that comes from. And there's a picture of a shekel, the recreated half-shekel used to pay temple tax. After a 2,000-year moratorium, it is now possible for a Jew anywhere in the world to perform the mitzvah commandment of paying half-shekel, a biblically mandated tax incumbent on every Jew to finance the day-to-day operations of the temple. Now, obviously, the third temple is not rebuilt yet, but the Sanhedrin is reinstating this. This is really incredible stuff. There are now two ways to perform this commandment: one method for people who can hand-deliver their offering, and another for those who can't. While the temple was standing, every Jewish man was required to give 1/2 shekel weight of silver, approximately 8 grams of silver, and this is could silver be worth more in these end times, because now they're actually going to be requiring it for stuff like this to pay for the temple, or will they just go for some fiat currency, or whatever? But this is interesting. Worth about $4 a day, 8 grams of silver. As a mandatory tax to support the temple, each man was obligated to give the same amount regardless of his economic condition. The coins, once deposited in the temple courtyard, were hekdesh, sanctified, and not permitted to be used for any other purpose. The nation of Israel continued to observe the commandment even after the first temple was destroyed, until the practice was outlawed by Roman Emperor Hadrian in the year 135 CE. Common Era. Or Christian Era, if you're actually a Christian. Even Jews who lived outside of Israel continued to donate half-shekel despite Roman Senate forbidding the export of gold and silver. 20 years ago, Reuven Prager revived the mitzvah. He began minting silver coins that adhered to the biblical requirements, producing a new and unique design every year. Those who wish to perform the mitzvah buy the silver coins from Prager and then deposit them with Atzar Hamigdash, treasury of the temple, an organization set up to collect these coins. Interesting. So I wonder how much they have to date. the whole temple's ready to go. They have the blueprints. They have all the the gold crowns. They have the garb, the priestly garb. They have the Kohanim, the priestly, the Levitical priests, and they're all trained. They have priest schools, and now they have the coins to fund this. They're ready to go. Otzgar Hamikdash duly deposits them in their vault. To date, the organization has collected more than 200,000 coins, and this is silver. In temple times, it was incumbent upon every Jew to make a triannual pilgrimage to Jerusalem, depositing half-shekel. Today, when most Jews live in diaspora outside of Israel, it was more difficult. Anyways, it goes on. The Sanhedrin approves of Prager's version of the half-shekel, but saw a need that led to the creation of the medallion. The half-shekel was a tax intended to be used for specific purposes. Rabbi Weiss, spokesman for the Sanhedrin, said, as such, it was dynamic and not simply stored away. As the preparation for the temple move forward, we need that tax re-emerging. Let me read that again. As preparations for the temple move forward, this is the current day Sanhedrin saying this. As the preparations for the temple move forward, we need the tax re-emerging. So they are readying the third temple. Even if you don't believe the third temple is needed, the Sanhedrin is getting ready to build the third temple. So is the Temple Institute. The medallion itself is not sanctified to the temple, but any money raised by the medallion is sanctified and cannot be used for any other purpose. Rabbi Weiss described the biblical precedents for such an agreement. There were several cases of sanctified items like tithes that could be redeemed for 100%, 120% of their value. And if a man with at all redeem aught of his tithes, will at all redeem aught of his tithes, he shall add thereto the fifth part thereof. Leviticus 27:31. Similarly, people who could not bring their own sacrifices brought tokens in the temple which were redeemed for the annual animal or grain that were actually used in the sacrifice, until the return of the 3-year pilgrimage festivals in Jerusalem makes it possible to reinstate the practice of the half-shekel tax being hand-delivered by every Jew to the temple. The Sanhedrin's medallion is helping the temple become reality. Many organizations in Israel are actively working to rebuild the third temple. Whether you believe it needs to be rebuilt or not, actually, it doesn't need to be rebuilt for the return of the Lord, but the scriptures prophetically suggest because of the Antichrist, he's going to stop the sacrifice, which means the sacrifices have to start up again. That means the third temple is likely going to be rebuilt, and the Sanhedrin now is taxing for it. We are in the end times. The Lord is returning soon. Bible prophecy is being fulfilled.